Maybe. There we go. Mic's on.
One can dream.
Mic's on. Mic's on. Okay. We'll wait just a moment for Commissioner Gonzalez. And here's Commissioner Gonzalez.
Good morning.
Good morning. Everybody take a deep breath.
Count to 10. Morning, sir.
Let's rise for the invocation. I'm sorry, pledge to the flags. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor to the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you all very much. Good morning. It's the 14th of August. Good Lord. 14th of August. We have all members of the court present. We have a quorum present, and we're meeting in a workshop format. Excuse me. Continuing our discussion of the budget. Kristen, run over again the future schedule. Just a few minutes, please, so the court will know where we go from here.
Okay, tomorrow, which is August 15th, we will be having a regular Commissioners Court meeting. However, the only item on the agenda for tomorrow will be to vote on the proposed tax rate. So we do need a vote on the proposed tax rate so that can be published.
That's a recorded vote, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
This is from the calendar on tab 1.
I'm sorry. Oh, yes, on calendar on tab 1.
Tab 1. Okay, thank you.
And then tomorrow, should the court vote to propose a tax increase, then that triggers some public hearings. And the first public hearing would take place on August 28th. And then the second hearing will take place on September 6th.
Okay.
September 5th, yes, September 6th.
On page 01.
101-2.
Thursday?
Okay, go ahead.
Is it Thursday?
Number 6, yes, it's
Yes.
Thursday, yes.
Yes,
That's the hearing, public hearing.
public hearing.
Okay, go ahead.
On September 5th, which is a regularly scheduled court meeting, that's when the auditor will file the proposed budget. Now, September 12th is a very important date, and that had not been scheduled as a regular scheduled meeting, but it is now. And that will be the date to adopt the tax rate and the public hearing on the adoption of the budget. And Johnny Hipp will also be here to go over the hospital district budget on that date as well, so that's September 12th.
All right, today is a workshop. We have no more scheduled budget workshops, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, here we go. All right, we have a number of proposals before us. I'm asking the court this morning to please try to wrap your thought process up, if you will, today. As Brent said yesterday, he's gotten more information this year than he has any year he's been here, and that's because our auditor staff and Kristen and Teresa have really been working hard on behalf of the court. We will probably roll this thing now for a couple of weeks, and then we'll begin to try to finalize this. So please, if you will, if you have extra questions or want other information, today is the day to try to get it done. They've got an awful lot going on over in the auditor shop now that they need to move on some stuff that they put aside. So, Kristen, I'm going to turn it over to you and Dale, and we'll go from wherever the court takes us this morning.
Okay, Dale provided some great worksheets this morning that's should be part of your packet, and it gives several different scenarios based on effective tax rate, maximum rollback, 1 cent above, etc., and this will give you a good indication of how each of these scenarios directly impacts the fund balance. Dale, do you want to take them through those?
Yes, we basically, the one that's already in tab 8.1, where this all would go to tab 8.8 if you want to put this is where it's at. The one that's in there right now is the 1.5 above the effective rate. But we wanted to make sure we gave you everything that we've discussed, so this includes all of our our balances. The only thing that will change is on the first page, you'll see where it says about four sentences down, it says effective tax rate adoption on the front page, and then it goes through each one. That's the only thing that changes on any of the pages. All the cuts are still there, all the cost of living is still there, all the reclassifications are still there, the COLA is still there, and anything that we've already discussed is still in this, in the reports. There's nothing been adding or nothing been taken out. The only change would be the revenue that's shown on that one line. So each one goes through each one, and we wanted to make sure you had everything that we had, to make sure you knew what we're talking about. So as we said, it goes through all of our scenarios we talked before, including using last year's current rate that we're on. And then also, just for your clarification, the back we provided you two lists. We already provided you what it would be if we cut 4% of operating expense. We've also wanted to give you what 1% across the board cuts would be for each of the departments. We're going to be sending out a letter this afternoon to each of the department heads.
I'm sorry, Dale, said 2% cut from your department?
What?
How much percent?
1% cut across the board. That's what y'all been proposing. If we do operating expenses, 4%.
The 1% includes salaries and benefits.
Includes whatever they want it to include.
The 4% does not include salaries, so that's how I had to get 4% to be able to reach $1 million. And y'all wanted a $1 million cut.
Okay, now 4%.
4% of the operating expense, which is supplies, travel, maintenance, repair.
We would do that, not them, right?
They would do that too.
Right. So basically the amount you see, so if, for example, if you look on this first one, it says 1% across the board cuts, and you'll see Department 1010, Commissioner Precinct 1. So the total budget, including salaries and benefits, is $172,121. So 1% cut would be $1,721, and then it would be up to the department head or elected official how they want to cut that.
Again, if we go to the next one where I just use operating expense, not including salaries, again, for Commissioner Vaughn, Department 1010, if it was only for operating expense, the amount of cut that she would need to do was $350. So there's relatively difference between if we include salaries and not include salaries.
She would need to do what?
If we do 4% of operating expenses, which is supplies, travel, Commissioner Vaughn will only have to cut $350. But since we're going to include salaries in the 1% across the board, the cut would have to be $1,700.
I thought we were going to sell.
And it really...
Y'all just saying what you want, 1% across the board, which includes salaries. So that's what we're putting in now, 1% across the board, which includes everything.
But wait, if it's
But their decision.
right, if it's 1% across the board,
You get 1%, it's a
meaning
$1,700
they can
cut.
do whatever they want. If they want to do 4% salaries, 4% operations, they can.
They can,
If they want to do a combo, they can.
as long as it totals
Right.
the cuts we're proposing.
Right, so, but if it's 1% across the board, and they cut 1% across the board, is that going to get to $1 million?
No.
Or it depends on what they
No.
cut?
1% across the board will not get $1 million. You'll get 880,000.
1% across the
That includes transfers.
1% that we saw was $1,016,000.
That's 4% of the operating expense. Y'all wanted $1 million, I cut 4% to get $1 million. Y'all said y'all want $1 million cut, that's what y'all were proposing, so that's what the 4% does, get you $1 million in cuts.
This says, okay, so this is wrong on this sheet, because this says 1% operation cut, not 1%
cut.
operation cut. Yesterday's sheet, it's not 1% operation cut,
No,
it's,
1% across the board.
okay, see, on the sheet you gave us yesterday,
Notes from them.
it says countywide across the board, 1% operation cuts, $1,016,992.
I think it just meant across the board because it's across all departments. I think that's really what that meant.
But it says 1% operation cost, he's saying it's 4% operation cost. It's not really 1% operation cost either.
It's 4% operation cost to get $1 million.
Huh? Okay, so it's 4% operation cost,
Get $1 million.
or 1%, or 1 point something percent?
1%, if you do 1% across the board, not including transfers, it'd be around $900,000.
Not including transfers.
Because our budget is $90 million.
Why wouldn't you include transfers?
Because transfers are required expenses that we have to transfer to other operating funds.
But if it's in their budget, wouldn't they be able to cut whatever they need to cut?
That's true, but if we look at it this way, we fund, let's pick a department we fund. We fund the airport, we fund inland parks, we fund island parks. Because if we propose this, we're proposing an increase in their expenses because of salaries, this and this. Their operating cuts are probably going to cut those to where it's zero, so we can't reduce their transfer.
So they still have a cut within their department, but, so,
Offsetting the increases they're being put in because of salaries or other
You're putting
adjustments.
money in, but you're taking money out.
Yes.
yes.
So why?
But so I don't have to increase the transfers to offset the increases in the position. I can't decrease it because they're not lowering their budget.
But then what's the percentage across the board, including everything that gets $1 million? That's the number everybody asked for.
Be at least 1.5.
Well, okay. And I know you guys are busting your hump here, but we got to know. Is it 1.5? Is it 1.25? Is it 1.3? Is it 1.1? Because we're all trying to figure out what to do, and we've got to have exact numbers. So if it's not 1, then tell us what it is so we can, because I can't make, I'm just trying to decide on all
Just 1 moment, please,
of it.
Commissioner. We'll get that number for you.
Okay, thank you.
Because you got to go in with something else I get this worked out.
I just don't know what it means.
I guess if you want to look, while he's looking at that,
Well, you can keep moving on. You can get to
Okay.
me later. I mean.
okay, while he's looking at that right now, so those sheets that he was just going through on the effective tax rate, so if you look at your sheet, which is 8-1, and it has the effective tax rate at the top, if you look on the second page, you'll see that by using the effective tax rate, the estimated actual fund balance is $15,939,511.
Okay, now where you at, Christian?
I am on 8.2, and the top should say effective tax rate. This is on the packet that was just giving you this morning.
Got it.
Okay. And so that's a 17.6% estimated actual fund balance.
Right, if we don't make cuts
That's
to go along with that.
well, no, the cuts are already reflected in here.
But not the cuts we talked about yesterday, meaning more cuts than just the overages. Like yesterday, I asked for the number, and he gave me a number. And I said, what number does it take to
Oh, I see.
maintain the effective tax rate and not cut into the reserves? And that was the $3 million number that he gave.
Yes.
Okay, yes. And what we can also do, with any of these scenarios is any of the additions or cuts that are listed on 8.1, Dale can go into the spreadsheet and we can take things out or add things to see how that was reflected.
We're across the board to give the $1 million that we were asking for, it needs to be 1.15%
Thank you, that's what I needed, 1.15.
across the board.
Thank you.
And just for clarification, if we did that for Commissioner Vine, instead of the 1,700 to be 1,900.
That's okay.
All right, go ahead, Chris.
Okay. Then if you'll go to the maximum rollback rate sheet and flip over to the second page of that of 8-2, you'll see that would give you an estimated actual fund balance of $21,357,626, or 22.2%.
And that rate is how much?
That's your 8% above the effective rate.
No, I know, but 32 cents.
Oh, I'm sorry.
32 cents in total, yes.
What is it?
Around 32, yes.
Okay, good. All right.
Okay. Then if you go to the next one, which is 1 cent above the effective tax rate, and you flip over to the second page, you'll see that brings an estimated actual fund balance of $18,614,726, or 19.9%.
And that's a slight decrease from the estimate of the current year, yes.
Say that again.
1 cent above the effective rate, if you look at the two lines that she's showing on page 8.2, the estimate for 17-18 is 18.9, and we're estimating 18-19, 18.6, so it'd be a $300,000 reduction in resources
At a 1
at a 1 cent
1 cent.
above the effective rate.
So all of these budget worksheets are assuming everything on this sheet?
That's
Yes.
correct. That's correct.
Yes.
Okay, so, okay, so, and I know you're still going through these, but did you run the scenario of, no, I'm sorry, so the number, if we go back to the original budget, just trying to keep my things straight here, if we go back to the original proposed budget that you and the judge laid out, then our number is that 3 million to keep the effective tax rate and not dig into the reserves. That 3 million is still a solid number in your opinion?
Yes.
Because I think we're going to start from the proposed budget because none of these things have been voted on yet. So
Nothing's been voted on.
right, no, I'm just making sure where I know we're starting. So when we start on actual voting, we're going to start with the proposed budget as laid out by the judge and the staff, and then start making motions to either include, exclude.
To amend it if you wish.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Go ahead. Yep.
Okay, then if you'll go over to the sheet, which is 1.5 cents above the effective tax rate, that brings in the $5.3 million, and on the second page, you'll see that that has a fund balance of $19,952,334, or 21.1%, and that does maintain approximately the current percentage as this year. So this fiscal year is ending with an estimated 18.958,360 fund balance, which is 21.3%, and that 1.5 is at 21.1%. And then if you go over to the next page, which is using the prior year adopted tax rate, so that's the current rate, that brings in $3.14 million, and on the second page, you'll see that the estimated fund balance would be $17,719,332, or 19.1%.
Okay.
So those are the different scenarios that were put together. So in order to further affect the fund balance on any of these, you would have to either add additional cuts, or if you want to see any other scenarios, we can add those in as well.
Dale, were you able to work out any kind of estimate on the fees?
Yes. Let me go get them real quick. They'll be.
All right, that's fine.
So let me clarify then, real quick.
Here they come.
Go ahead, Commissioner. Go ahead.
For Kristen. So what Commissioner Chesney was saying was that the 3 million is really the number we need for the cuts, but everything above that is to help the fund balance.
Well, I think the $3 million that Commissioner Chesney is referring to would be using the effective tax rate. Those are the $3 million. There's the additional cuts that would, on top of what we've already looked at, that would be on top of that in order to use the effective tax rate and not further reduce the fund balance.
No, not on top of what we've already looked
No
at.
increase in fund balance.
No, not on top of what we've already looked at, because we haven't voted on anything.
Well, no, but it'd be additional of what we already have on the screen. There's nothing been voted on, but there would be an additional $3 million that we'd have to put on top of what we already have here.
That's not what I asked. What I asked yesterday was, if you take the original budget and you have the 2.765 number, and then we reduce that 2.765 number because we got more from the number, because it went from 411 to 1.3 something, and the number from the original budget that we have to make is what I asked yesterday, and if you need to go back and recalculate it, back.
The original that we proposed was what we're looking at.
No, it was not. These things are all add-ons, Dale. The original budget did not have all of this stuff in it. It didn't. Some of them were in there, but not all of these things were in there. They're not in the main budget. I don't remember seeing all of these things in the main proposed budget.
I'll take it all out.
Like the original cut wasn't in there. The hiring freeze wasn't in the original proposed budget.
The only problem, I need to leave because it was a challenge item. It was not part of what we talked about. We talked about the challenge item, but it wasn't voted on, so I'll delete those.
And I mean, I don't remember. I think the limited positions and classifications were in there, right? That was in the original budget. I'm just going to go through them all. So, were the limited new positions, were those in the budget, or were those as additions?
Challenging.
Pardon me?
Challenges. They were challenges. They weren't part of the original information I provided, no.
Right. So that original budget that was over by the 2.765 did not have the limited new positions or classifications in it? And did it have I'm just going down the list, did it have the COLA in it?
No.
Did it have the cuts in it?
No.
Did it have the hiring freeze in it?
No.
Okay, so none of those were in the original,
Didn't have the Road District 4 transfer either.
okay? And it didn't have the coastal park transfers, the road budget, all those special revenue entities, so none of those things are in the original budget. So again, trying to go back, and I get we're running all these scenarios, but I want to make sure everybody's clear. What I asked yesterday was, if you take the original budget and don't put any, because we haven't voted on any of these things, if you take the original budget and you say it's 2.765 million over last year's effective tax rate,
Got that here?
right? And then I said, okay, that goes down because the $411,000 that was originally projected for new revenue has now become 1.358.
Right.
So that 2.765 number goes down to $1.8 million. And I said, can you then please calculate, Dale, from the original budget where we need to start? And the starting point would be, you said yesterday, if you understood my question right.
I had the other cuts in there. So without the cuts we talked about, the proposed budget, I need $5 million.
But these aren't all cuts.
I'm not talking, we're going
also
from what we
addition.
provide you last time, change the increase in taxes only to what the effective rate brings me. I need $5 million cuts.
Okay, so we walked through this yesterday.
I'm looking on page 8.1, I think you disposed of that, but I'm showing here of what I have. I didn't have any increases in balances. I had $2,757,650, which is known increases that we have to fund, not including any reclassification, no new position, no cost of living increase, no adjustments of hiring freeze or anything in there. I have to get to the effective rate, I have to have $5 million worth of cuts to get to without using resources.
Okay, let's walk through that again, because we did this yesterday, and this is now changing again. And
No, this is from what?
No, it's changing, Dale. Go back and listen to the tape. It's changing. I asked this yesterday.
Yesterday, you asked, and I had all the cuts in it. The $3 million was all the cuts, including Road District 4.
That's changed. So let's walk through it again. 2.765 without any of this new stuff in it.
$2,757,000 is the challenges.
$2,757,650
$650. Known increases.
was the budget as laid out.
Yes. Known increases.
We then got a $900,000 adjustment, give or take, because the $411,000 in the original budget went up to 1.3 whatever.
Right,
So that has to come off of that 2.765, which is what we did yesterday.
Increases revenue.
But it's still going to come off.
No, it does in mine. I can print this, no problem.
But so it's going to come off the 2.765 number because we have 900,000 more revenue.
Right.
Okay. So, and this is what we did yesterday. We walked through this. We said 2.75650 minus whatever the difference is, and I'll say roughly $900,000. We'll take that down to 1.8 something. So we'll say 1.9. Okay. So that's the number that we would have to cut to get to the effective tax rate. Only the effective tax rate. What is it then?
$5 million.
Dale, how the crap are you coming up with $5 million? We just got it down to 1.9.
You have to remember, you paid $2 million worth of Road District 4. I've got to put $2 million in. There's $2 million cuts right there.
That's to cut into the reserves. That's a different category. So let me walk through this.
That's
No, it's
part of your
not.
transfers in your transfers on that line where it says transfers out. That's now $9 million. Last year was $7 million.
Dale, 1.9 million is the new number that we get to if we wanted to just cut to the effective tax rate, correct?
No.
Then tell me where you're coming up with it, because that's not how you answered me yesterday. Go review the tape that we asked you. You're answering me differently.
You asked me yesterday, and I had the cuts in there, which we had all the new positions, all the classifications, all the color increases that we had in discussion that shows in these tabs that we just showed you. And if you showed that on the one that I showed you effective rate, the one that had all the cuts in there, if you look in the back, it says $3 million, and that's what I told you.
Go review the tape. That's not what I asked you. So you may not have heard me right, so I'm going to ask you again. This 1.9 are the budget.
Going back to where we originally were, which is the original sheet, just putting in the effective rate of $1,385,000, keeping the $2,757,000 as cut. Those all sit one another, as you said. I need to not use resources $5 million.
And how? You tell me how. No, you tell me
Revenues
how.
are short.
No. Tell me how. How do you get to $5 million from 1.9?
Because
you gotta add the
revenue's
2
already
million.
short. Revenue's short of expense.
You got to cut the million. You got to cut the 2 million because it was a one-time transfer. You explained that to me yesterday. So you would take the 1.9 and you would add $2 million to make sure you don't cut into the reserve. So I get where you get to 3.9 million. I don't get where you get to 5.
Revenue's been short. If we look last year, revenue was short. But if you look at the costs here, and we can look at the sheet that we just provided you, 8-1, and don't look at anything else. And we look at the revenue to expense. Revenue to expense is $2 million. Revenues is $2 million short of expense without doing anything.
Revenue is $2
$2
million,
million short.
right, which is that $2 million transfer?
No,
from the
it's
road
not.
district for?
It's not.
Why is it $2 million short?
That's how it is. I'm not making this up.
But how? If we budget at 100% revenue and we spend 95% of our
We don't budget 100% revenue.
what do we budget? We budget 100% of what?
We budget 95% of taxes.
Okay, so that's
And we know we never collect 100%. We collect 95 to 96% of taxes.
But every
We
year.
always are conservative
every
about
year we
revenue.
Every year we come in under what the projected revenue is, every year. We budget a number and we always come in at about 95% of our budget.
Right?
So how is revenue short?
The revenue's always been short of expenses, because if we look at the revenue of 89 million and an expenses of, actual expenses, if we go to the prior years, and I'm talking about actual numbers, if you look at the sheet, and I'm not worried about this, so take the 8-1 that we just gave you, and you look down here at actual numbers. If you added 83 plus 1, that would give you 84, and we're saying 77 plus 9, that's 80, so we're short revenue and expense, and actual.
And so
Expenses are higher.
how can we budget?
We've always used fund balance.
No, we haven't always.
Yes, we have.
used balance.
Yes, we have.
How can we budget less than how can we budget on less revenue? How can we do that? We can't even legally do that. How can we do that?
That's how you balance your budget. You use your revenue expense and use your resources to balance your budget. That's how it's always done in government.
Or you cut.
Or you cut.
Right, so you're telling me that we budget,
Last year, revenue to expenses were $4 million short
last year,
in budget-wise.
revenue to budget was $4 million short.
Right.
And you're saying that's what we do all the time? For the last 30 years, that's what we've done in this county?
Yes.
How can that possibly be right?
That's how it's been done, and that's how it's been done every.
We've been taking money out of the fund balance for the last 4 years.
No, you've been taking it out the last 30 years, according
Well,
to
for
Dale.
the last 4 years.
No, last 30, and I'd like to go back and see that. I don't believe that. I don't believe we've taken money out of the reserves for the last 30 years.
Why would
that's
you do
Budget-wise, I'm not
Why
talking
would
about
you
actual.
cut? Why
No,
would
he's
you-
saying budget-wise, not actual. That's different than taking it out of the fund balance. then.
You're asking what we need to do for budget. We're talking about budget right now. I need $5 million cut to get budget.
Right, but we haven't been taking it out every year. This year, our fund balance went up because of that transfer, but it went up. So we're not taking it out every year. Maybe we are for budget reasons, but we're not for reality reasons. I don't even get where we're at now. I mean, so what you're telling me is, when we maintain the effective tax rate, or last year, we raised taxes last year. This court raised taxes last year. You're telling us after raising taxes, we still were short on revenue after we raised taxes?
If you wouldn't have the $2 million transfer from the Road District 4, we would have been at zero.
Say that again?
If we did not have the $2 million increase, the transfer from Road District 4, our increase in fund balance would be zero.
Okay, so then last year we didn't under budget, or however you want to call it. We just raised taxes to cover what you
Well,
said.
budgeting is always, you always over budget because we always have expenses higher because we have almost $2 to $3 million worth of contingencies because of emergency situations. There's always a window in there that we have $3 million that's there that's never touched. It's there now.
Okay, so we're not dipping into resources because we're not dipping into what you just said we aren't using. So we're not pulling out of the fund balance.
You have to look at the numbers. If the projection of the actual expenses come in how we think they would come in, and the revenue comes in as we think it comes in now we're projecting in 95% of expenses of expenditures, 95, and that's been history of what we've gone the last 3 or 4 years. Last year was a little bit lower because we had a little more contingency in there. But if you look at the collections of expenses of 94, 95, 96%, and our budget is 90,000, we expect to spend 86.
But under this scenario, you could never maintain the effective tax rate and not, under how you've explained it, and the way I understand it, you could never maintain the effective tax rate without cutting into your reserves.
No, you have to do cuts. Cuts of expenses. Actual cuts of expenses.
Right.
Not use fund balance. Actually have the departments cut expenses.
But
Not budget expenses. I'm talking actual expenses.
what's the difference between what we're talking about, budget and actual expenses? These are all expenses. This isn't,
These are projected balances that we project that these balances are. We're looking in a mirror trying to find out how we think the numbers are. And based on history, this is how it's worked.
We always look at a projection of what we think it's going to be, but it's not all the time.
Now, will it be 5 million? Probably not, but it's not going to be 2 or 3.
well, again, go back at it. So I go back after a budget workshop based on what I get in here, and I would ask you to go back and review the tape on how I asked the questions yesterday and how you gave me the answers yesterday, and that is why I've come in here and worked last night to figure out where to move. Now I got to start again, and I can tell you I got no opinion on anything today again because the numbers have changed again from what we asked yesterday. So I'll go back and review that tape too.
I was assuming we were having the limited new positions. I was assuming we had the reclassification. I was assuming the cost of living increase. I was assuming that, and that's why I told you 3 million. I was assuming that.
I don't know how you can assume that when we hadn't nobody's
We haven't voted on anything yet.
Nobody's even weighed in on any of it yet, except the only thing I said yesterday was the only thing I'm going to weigh in on is I'm not going to support a 1.5% tax increase, and I didn't weigh in on anything else because I hadn't made any decisions. In fact, I said that yesterday too. So I don't know how we can run those scenarios and answer questions based on throwing everything in the kitchen sink in. These are all wish list things. None of these have been voted on. So these scenarios are great, except it has everything in it, and you gave me a number based on, so I got to start all over again tonight. So, Judge, I'm not going to give you any opinions today other than I'm not supporting a 1.5% tax increase.
I sort of knew that's where you were.
I know, but I anticipated hopefully being able to come in here and give you some idea on other things. Now I can't. So I'm done. Go ahead. I'm done for the day on this.
But if we go back and put the $1 million in from the road district 4, that drops it down to 4. Simple as that.
We did do that. That's
Not here.
been done.
No, from the original proposal, that was not part of the
Right, but we did it
discussion.
yesterday because we voted on it as road
Now
district.
you're saying you're going back and you're adding this in, that you told me to go back from where we originally started from.
Because we voted on
Originally
something,
started-
Dale.
It wasn't voted on.
We voted yesterday for Road District 4 to
wasn't part of
recommend
the
it.
discussion we had. I can put the $500,000 in here.
When a Road District 4 votes 5-0 to do something, I think you can assume that one's going to be in there. The rest of these have not been weighed in on, voted on, talked about, except in general terms. So that's fine.
Meeting we did that.
All right, let's talk about constable proposed rates, please, if we can. See what kind of revenue, if any, we think we're going to get from that. Anybody have any ideas?
Sir, yes.
Okay, good,
This is,
thank you. Thanks for the hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is what I proposed based on the activity for this year. And really, what I did was take the
Can
same
we put that
activity.
on the screen, this proposed rates, please?
Let me go save it on my computer and we'll get it on the screen.
Okay.
There's a minute, this one here, come on. Give it to you.
Hey, John, hey, John.
It's a great idea. It really is, and I love it. I mean, you can see it when you're sitting out in the audience. You might mention that to them. You might mention that.
Judge, I know the budget is tight, but if there's some way, I don't know who we would ask. Some of us have experienced that piece of equipment, I don't know what it's called, but city council chambers in Corpus Christi have that projector where you slide the sheet over and then it has the camera above it and it immediately projects onto the screen. That might be easier when we have presentations that aren't necessarily on electronic copy, that we can at least still allow the public to kind of view the sheet.
See it immediately.
To see it immediately. I know we had it there, and I'm sure you all had it there too. But just something to consider for our equipment.
A lot of things you can do if you want to buy stuff.
I know.
Can we check into it and see how much it costs?
Might be easier for the eyes.
Huh?
Might be easier for the eyes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. There you go. Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay, what I am presenting to you today is the activity. We were able to, this is the highest breakdown we could give you for that activity level based on, so service fee, it includes RIT, it includes service, it includes all the itemization based on the activity that we were able to capture in Odyssey. And this activity actually is about 75% of the activity of the overall service and also revenues. So the projection is for the proposal 1, we would have a 23% increase in revenues. And in proposal 2, it would be 55% revenue.
Increase.
Increase. Revenue increase, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah, take into consideration this is about 75 to 77% of the overall revenues. I didn't give you a overall total, but this is just on the 75% of the revenues. Because
Okay.
it's the highest activity. And I looked at some of the current activity, and it's going to be about the same this year. So the trend will probably be the same next year.
So, 124,000, if 124,000 is 75%, 100% would be,
Only about 900, close to 900.
how much?
I'm thinking it's about, because this is 75%.
Yeah, okay, of
This is only-
663. And then the same thing on 840, that
Yes.
goes up to
About over $1 million, I think.
about, let's say $1 million. All right.
That's not new. That's not new money though, right?
Yeah.
The new money's to the right of that, right?
The second one's
New money, you're saying increase?
Yeah. The increase is the.
Yeah, that's the
But
total.
this is the 75%.
Yeah,
Oh.
okay, so if we had $1 million of revenue coming in to the constables under Proposal 2, then the increase would be roughly, 55% of $1 million?
Well, currently it's 840,000, so it'd be increase of, like, I guess 55% of that, of the 75% of the revenue.
Well, but it's 840,000 based on higher rates.
Right,
All right, currently, it's not 840.
right.
Right, it's 539.
30.
Mm-hmm.
It's 539.
Currently, it's 539,
Yes, sir.
which is a 55% increase at $1 million.
It'd be 400, it'd be about,
And of that, would that all be net? Would that be a net increase? $500,000?
because there's no additional cost. Infrastructure's in place.
So, the fee structure that needs to be determined is how high is high. And if you want to take this in smaller bites, we might want to look at proposal rates number 1, which is a 23% increase, which is a $300,000,
I'm sorry, I didn't calculate.
23% of 8, 3, 2, 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe 200,000. The issue here, guys, ladies, is how big a bite are you proposing to put on the public?
And
And a fee is a tax, okay? I don't care what you call it. A fee is a tax. And so if you increase the fees to certain members of the public from 539 to 663 to X, then what is the delta, which is what we asked for, and it's $200,000 or $300,000 at the middle. Maybe.
You know, and most of the fees, Judge, are not, I mean, I don't think the highest one is $30. I mean, when some going up 20.
You've been there, you know.
Going up 20, we're going up 20, going up 25, 30 was almost a max free.
Yeah.
So it's not really going up a lot, you know, just.
No, I'm not talking about that, Joe. I'm just saying, you've been sitting there. You sat in that chair, and you know how hard it is for some of those people to pay those fees. But I'm trying to come up with a number that the court can agree on. That's a broad statement, isn't it? That the court can at least use for planning purposes. And if we want to talk about an additional revenue source, then we're talking about adding, what number you guys want to use, 300,000? I'm asking, because this is way above my pay grade. The way they charge these things and the way they give the writs and all that other stuff, I've never sat there, so I don't know.
You know, when you serve the writs and you serve the papers, it's really taken a lot of time from our officers, really. Sometimes they go to that twice and 3 times. So, you know, we don't figure the gas, you know, you wouldn't go twice and 3 times.
Well, I'm just hunting the delta.
So,
And we need a number to give to Dale
right.
to come up with revenue,
I mean, we
and
can,
because this is getting down to the nitty-gritty now.
and then we go to 1 and it gives us next year a chance to go up higher if we wanted to. But, you know, you go to 1, you're really not going that much higher from what it is now. You're going $10 or, you know, I think 20 and $25 is not a lot, you know, because most of the papers are served for, you know, actually for people that you're out there looking for, but
Well, give me a number.
When was the last time there was a rate increase?
Been a long time.
But I'm saying, you have to update. It's the cost of business to
Yeah.
do the business. You gotta
I'm ready to
update.
do that, Carolyn.
I'm okay with 2. I'm okay with 2.
I'm too.
With 2?
We were low, I thought, compared to the others on a lot of them. They were, you know, so I don't have a problem with 2.
I don't want to do this every year, so if we're going to do it, let's knock it out, because
All right.
based on what she gave us yesterday, we are way undercharging for what this cost. I mean, way. Even if you even if you cut her number in half yesterday, we're still way undercharging on this. And again, to me, we ought to do everything we can to charge the true cost of doing business.
Cover our cost.
Yeah,
So
because
what delta number do you think would be fair? Knowing full well, we don't know, but knowing full well that we need a reasonable number to ask Dale and Kristen to plug into here. And what is that number? 400,000? Or what number do you all want to use?
I think I'm with Carolyn. I'm good with 2. I mean, I just think
No, but you got to, that's not the right number on here. Because if you use 100%, this is 75%. So if you use 100%, what's the 100% number?
Oh, you're looking for a number.
I'm looking for the delta.
I would say 450.
For the overall cost of constables and overall fees, this is, she said, about 75%.
Right, well, it looks like someone's doing it right now.
So the 539,010 is 75%, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to
Okay.
do,
So plug that in and tell us what it is.
Okay.
500,000. I figured 500,000, but I don't know what it is. I'm not an auditor.
Yeah, what's that number gonna come out to over there, Kristen? There you go, right there.
401,587.
There's your number, Judge.
How about 400,000?
Yes, and that's based on that proposed rate number 2.
Can we agree to 400,000 and ask the auditor to factor that into the formula? 400,000?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. That's a new revenue source. Okay. Dale is working his magic numbers. Barbara, how you like watching sausage made? Okay.
Okay, we're going to go back to the scenario. I've taken out everything we haven't discussed. I put back in the $1 million for the Road District 4, and I'm putting in the 1% cut, because we're going to do the 1% cut.
We are.
I don't know. I don't know that. I don't.
You asked me to send it out to the departments for 1%. I'm just asking, do I include that or not?
Yes, put it in there.
Yeah, I think that's
We're going to make some cuts.
1%.
Okay, not to get off subject, but while we were talking, I was doing 1% off of my own budget. I pulled it up, and I don't want to say it's easy. There's some sacrifice there, but I pulled up 1%, and that's something that I can live with. But I had the freedom to be able to choose, what line items, and of course, most of it's in salary and benefits, but in the extra, that's just enough fat to get us at that 1%. But it's going to be a challenge, I'm sure, for other departments, other elected officials. But I did it, and I know Commissioner Vaughn and others have said, if we're going to ask everyone to do it, we got to take the lead. And so,
Like I said, I've talked about 5 departments, and 1% to them was okay. I mean, in fact,
All
I
right, go
said,
ahead.
Dude.
Sounds like you got a consensus.
Go ahead and figure it in, Dale, because we're going to get there.
Just to make sure
We're going to get there.
Just to make sure we are. We started with $2,757,650, which was expense.
She's right. It's 1.15 is what you said a while ago, not 1. Remember, you corrected it and said you needed 1.15.
Right.
Okay, so
1.15 to get to right close to $1 million. It's not quite. It's a little bit more than $1 million. But it's 1.15. It's not significantly any more. But
you're starting from the original budget, and you're going to
original budget. I'm adding the Road District 4, and I'm taking out the cuts. Nothing else that's there. I'm putting in the effective rate. Is that the effective rate?
And you
Make sure I get their effective rate number there. Right? That's the effective rate. And I'm adding the $400,000 worth of fee increases, roughly. So with that, I would need $2,700,000 in cuts to get to be the effective rate. To have no effect on the fund balance. 2.7.
to maintain the effective rate and not cut into the
Right.
reserve.
Need 2.7. And that not counting anything else that we've discussed. Just the $2,700,000 originally, the effective increase of $1,400,000, the new balances, the Road District 4, and the cuts. That's the only thing that's in my schedule here at the moment. I need $2,715,824 worth of cuts to get zero effect on the fund balance.
Okay. All right. Any other concerns that we need to point the staff and/or the auditor's office in? Because the next time we come together, we'll begin to vote, right?
Right, so tomorrow you have to vote on a proposed tax rate.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. It has to be done tomorrow.
Okay. Okay, well, we've been told at the effective tax rate how much you need, so that's without any other stuff.
Anything else, correct.
And Kristen, when you say we have to vote on that tomorrow, that also could potentially change as we move forward. Because are we allowed to try to make our cuts tomorrow? If we want to?
No, I mean, you're not voting on the budget tomorrow, but you pretty much need to know, what you have in mind, what you want to see the budget to look like in order to propose a tax rate.
Right, but since we don't know who all's going to vote for what, how do we do that? How do we do that? Because let's say that tomorrow there's 3 votes for a half-cent sales tax or a penny sales tax, or there's 3 votes for the effective tax rate, or there's whatever. But let's say it's for the tax increase, but then we go through on budget day and make cuts to where we get 3 votes to get it to where we don't have to.
Right, you can adopt something lower,
Can't adopt anything higher.
but you can't adopt higher.
Okay. We can't vote today, can we?
No,
But tomorrow we'll vote.
on just the proposed tax rate, yes.
So what does that look like?
It depends on what we do.
Looks like a bunch of different stuff.
Depends on what we do.
I mean,
It honestly, I mean, it depends on where, one of the driving factors, it depends on what you want the fund balance to look like. If you want to maintain the current fund balance level, which is, around 18, 19 million or 21%, knowing the goal is 25%, that's one thing. If you're willing to take a decrease, or if you're really wanting to build it back up, it just depends on what your goals are with the fund balance, and then that depends on what we need to do with the different scenarios and how many cuts need to be made and what the tax level needs to be.
So, help me a minute, Dale. At a 1 cent increase above the effective tax rate, what does the tax rate become? What's the 1 cent above where, two things. 1 cent above the effective tax rate is, where is that? It's in here somewhere. I got so much stuff now. I
If we
can't.
do everything that if we keep the rate for the debt service as is, and we keep the road fund at, fair market, we didn't change that, that's effective rate. So our debts, our general fund would be .259497. Let me put this on there real quick, because I need to, we want to keep the debt service at .4426 as we've discussed with, when Noe came in and talked about it. So.
Right.
And we most likely want to keep the road fund where it was at .003997, I believe it was, right? So .259497, .04426. What was the debt service? .003, what, 9?
Last year,
That, the road fund,
the road fund, .003899.
3899? For the entire county, for 1 cent above the effective rate, keeping the debt service rate as is, keeping the road fund as the current rates, we would need .307672.
307672.
72.
All right. What is it now?
.307991.
So it would actually go down a hair.
Slightly.
All right. So 307672 is the,
1 cent.
could be
1 cent above the effective rate.
1 cent.
Above the effective, yes.
307991 is current,
Current tax rate of all three entities, yes.
and the effective tax rate, guess, is how much?
.300088.
Okay. So, for talking purposes, the 1 cent, as proposed, maybe, lowers the tax rate from where we are today.
Right.
Now, in doing that, it's still above the new effective tax rate.
Correct.
Yes,
So we still have to have all the public hearings.
that's correct, yes. Anything above the effective tax rate.
All right, so by lowering, by lowering the current tax rate to a 1 cent increase, we actually reduce the amount of taxes per $100 value for a $100,000 house by a hair,
Based on, as compared to the current rate, yes.
compared to the current rate.
Yes.
So theoretically, if we started off, I'm just talking, if we started off with a 1 cent above the effective tax rate, we literally would be lowering the current amount of taxes paid by the citizens in Oasis County under where we are currently
Yes,
by a hair, just a little.
yes.
How can that be? If we're going ahead of the effective tax rate, how can we be lowering the cost per hundred?
Because our current tax rate's higher than the new effective tax rate.
Right, but the valuations are going to, if the valuations go up, then we're not lowering their taxes.
But we're talking about the rate,
I know. I'm
not
just saying.
not the valuations.
Right,
Rate.
Right, but
That's the math out there. You know, what we're talking about doing right now, perhaps doing, is using a tax rate that actually could lower the current cost, depending upon valuations, all right?
That's what needs to be said, depending upon valuation.
Well, that's always the case.
Well, no, but
Yeah, it's always the case.
it's not fair to say we're going to be lowering potentially,
The rate.
right, you would be lowering the rate, but you would still be raising the amount of taxes,
If
just
the
not as
valuation
much. Right.
If the valuation.
Which everybody's valuations went up, except in Port Aransas where they plummeted. I won't say everybody's, but most valuations
and
went
the
up.
valuation is always the argument that you get into. But so, tomorrow morning, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, and then we'll see where we go. We can go down, we can't go up.
Correct.
And a 1 cent increase, theoretically, gets us to about 20%. Before all the other stuff, based on 082. Is that correct?
Second, Judge.
Is that right? Now, by what we've done today and what Brent's talked about, and with other cuts, we're probably going to come in lower. Because we know we've got another $400,000 worth of revenue to factor in. Or is that factored in?
That's factored in.
It is, okay. And that gives us, rather than 18,614, gives us what? And I know this is not really accurate, but the legislature didn't say you had to be right. They said you got to do something. And the legislature has told us we have to act tomorrow.
Your Honor, just with the rough numbers we have, including what we've discussed about the 1.15% cut, the adding of the road district 4 balances at 1 cent, we'd be a break even.
Break even.
Break even. No increase in fund balance.
And no decrease in.
No decrease.
At a 1 cent increase.
That's it.
Or it's,
About the effective rate.
so to accomplish, if my goal is to accomplish, maintain, if my goal, I'm not saying the court, I'm not saying mine in a bad way, because I don't know what, I'm not speaking for everybody else here. If my goal is to adopt the effective tax, or is to not dip into the general reserves and adopt the effective tax rate, I've got to figure out how to get 3 votes for 2.7 million more cuts, or Lloyd's 1 cent proposal does the same thing. Or there could be a combination of the two where some cuts are made and it goes to a half cent or something like
Right.
that.
As you know, the 1 cent, the effective rate brings in 1.3 million. The 1 cent brings in right at 3.5, so that's the $2 million or 2.7 we're talking about. So that's where the difference sits.
Now, so I understand, if 1 cent, based on what you just told us, does not increase the fund balance?
No.
I can't live with that.
And Dale, that's not including everything that's been discussed, right? It's just a limited.
That's only the 1.5% increase, the 1.15 cut across the board, and the road district 4. That's all it includes.
And it
Plus the 2.7 we already
The
discussed.
challenges.
Nothing else.
And it doesn't assume all these other add-ons that
Nothing
we
else.
talked about.
Does not include anything else.
We're going to have to go higher than that. We can go down, we can't go up. All right, look at 1.5 cents. Please. That's your scenario, on one of the scenarios, with changes.
Okay, with the same assumptions, that would bring in 1.2 million more revenues. That would increase your fund balance by right about 1.2 million.
That's it?
That's it.
So what would that percentage be?
21%.
21%?
Yes.
What would the fund balance be?
20,255,000, rough.
Rough. We can come down from that. So 1.5 cent What is the magic number at 1.5 cents?
Let's do that real quick. What's my 1.5 cent tax rate?
Your wanting general fund is 26,8163.
Okay, I'm having the farm to market and the debt service at the current rates.
Right. Right.
Previous, the rate I need for 1.5 cent would bring me to 31,6338,
All right.
and that's .008347 above the current rate.
How much?
.008347. A little more than 3/4 cent above the current rate.
And that takes our fund balance to,
1.2 or $20 million, 255.
okay. Before any of the other stuff. Okay. So we can go down, we can't go up. All right. I'll tell the court where I'm going to go tomorrow, and you guys can throw me over the bus or whatever. Under the bus.
Too heavy, Judge. Sorry, man.
Well, you can push me under the bus, you can't throw me anywhere. I'm going to recommend that we start our discussion with a 1.5 cent tax increase at a rate of 31,6338, knowing full well that's probably not anywhere near where we're going to be, but it gives us an upward cushion that we set. I think what you're telling me, that we will satisfy the truth in taxation by that number, right?
Yes, that's my understanding. Is that your understanding, Dale?
And we have to file that, right?
Yes.
Then we'll work on for 2 weeks before we vote on the budget and bring that number down, we hope, substantially by doing whatever else we all agree on or don't. But we have to have a vote tomorrow on setting a ceiling, right?
Yes.
All right. You all know where I'm going. If I get 3 votes, we'll move forward. If I don't, God help us. But we'll do something tomorrow that will meet the requirements of the truth in taxation law, which is the first thing.
Right, and so if that is voted on tomorrow, the 1.5 cent increase, then that will trigger the 2 public hearings.
Well, we're going
Yes.
to do that
Yes,
probably anyway.
yes, any increase above the effective tax rate.
Not necessarily, because we might hunker down to an effective tax rate before we're through, but right now, to get a fund balance and all the other stuff, we're going to have to have serious discussions over the next couple of weeks. Commissioners, I don't like this to be where we are, but that's where we are. You know what I'm going to do tomorrow? It'll take a second and a vote. If your conscience won't let you vote on it, vote your conscience. But we've got to get a rate.
Right, and so tomorrow, after you vote on the proposed tax rate, if there's other discussions where it could be decreased, we may have to schedule another budget workshop for a discussion before they adopted, because your only other
I can tell you right
chance-
now, we're going to have another budget workshop. All right? Okay? You guys understand where I'm coming from. We're setting the ceiling because we've been told we can lower but not raise. And it's always better to be high to come down from, because if we set our ceiling too low and we find out we're in trouble, we're in trouble. So I got it. I know you have it. You're probably going to have to bite the end off your tongue tomorrow to do some of the things that I'm going to suggest. But then we'll have another workshop. We'll have to schedule that with the commissioners and get on their calendar pretty quickly. We'll have another workshop where we're going to have to hammer this stuff out, ladies and guys, because we're running out of time, number one, and there are a lot of good suggestions out there. But you still got to get 3 votes to move this thing forward, and we have to end up with the budget by September.
12th,
No, but
I'm sorry.
okay.
To file the,
Yeah, but we got to get this done before the 12th. We have to hammer all this stuff out. We'll do at least one more workshop, can't thank you all enough for what you're doing. Does everybody understand where I'm coming from, please? We're setting we're setting a threshold, setting a threshold to work against to bring it down, because we can't go up. Got it? Anybody got any questions?
I have one.
Okay.
When do we, like on the new positions and limited reclassifications, when do we talk about that? Because
We'll start that again in the workshop.
You talk about now.
because I
You can talk about now.
Well, you can talk about it now if you want to.
I got about
We're not going to make any decisions today.
$150,000 we can save. We don't, we don't do all this here, but
Yeah.
I think I went over with Christian yesterday.
Well, we'll take each one of them when we get there,
All right.
and it'll take a vote.
Okay.
3 people got to agree to do something. Okay? Well, no, we're not there, Joe.
Okay.
We're just not there. And this is not how it's going to look. I can tell you that. But we have had excellent support from the staff and from the auditor. And we thank all of you very much.
Judge, can I ask a question?
Surely, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
This is really bugging me because, I told you that our CPAs worked on something, said that if we would use the actuals, you guys actually must have had to cut some last year somewhere to make sure that you got to your budget because you had to dip into funds to get it. When we looked at the budget and we actually look what was actually spent, which is the truth, that's what the departments actually spent, they budgeted higher. But when we looked at that, and if you would stay at the actuals, you could actually save $6.5 million. All I'm asking you is why aren't we looking at that?
Well,
With 3%.
We can, if the court wants to do that, we can definitely do that. Our discretion is that's how we've been working with this. If we want to do the actuals, then what we'll be seeing is every week from the start of October 1, you'll have a budget change order every week. Because these departments can't predict what they need in a certain time.
Well, they did pretty good last year. In fact, one department, DA, I think they saved like $600,000, I think it was something like that, in their department that they didn't actually spend.
They had a lot of vacancies.
And now we're
All
back
salaries.
up. But I'm just saying, that it's just an idea. I mean, that's what I said I
we
could live
possibly do
with.
that, but for salary positions, we have to budget 100% of your salaries.
Yeah.
Just in case you have 100%.
Well, it's amazing when you have to cut, you really watch what you're spending, so obviously they had to last year. That's all I'm
Well,
saying. Y'all did good last year.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying, but what we don't, I'll be gone. What you don't want to have every time you meet is a laundry list of change orders. And it could be pages of change orders, because why they spent $1 last year on X, and they go to price it this year, and they find out they were way short spending $1. They need $5. If there's not room in their budget to get the $5 because you cut their budget so thin, then the only way they can do is do without, number one. Find a better way to do something, number two, or go to the contingency fund, and the court has to vote on taking money out of the contingency fund to fund that elected official, normally, who comes to the court and says, you have not given me enough money to do my constitutional job, and I can sue you for that.
And I understand that, Judge. My problem is that if they've continually had to borrow money, we can't keep operating the county having to go into funds or raising taxes to cover our expenses. In the real world, you don't do that, and that's the complaint citizens have, is because that's what we do. We dip in and whatever we get. It's like you can go buy a brass bracelet, but by gosh, let's raise those taxes and we can get a gold one. And that's where I have a problem with it.
Well, you get a vote.
I know.
So what's the downside of doing the actuals? Budgeting the actual?
Well, if you budget the actuals, then you're budgeting this, then you'll come in, where do you determine what the actuals are? Because, every year is different. And,
What if you took what if we came up with a 3-year rolling average and we said that was the actual? I mean, there's got to be a...
Well, let's
I'm just
put
trying
it this way. If we budget expenses and we say 3% above the actual and we come in, whatever the number is, I don't know what the number is, and an emergency comes up, another hurricane hits us, another tornado hits us, another flooding hits us, and now we have to go over budget, which means entire budget. Y'all now need to declare an emergency situation to raise budget.
But if you budget the actuals, you're actually going to have some money left over that you could do that with. That's all I'm saying.
Not enough for, where it's,
On our figures, on the figures that we did, it was like $6 million. I'm just saying. It's just something to look at.
Okay. All right, anything else? Got it? Everybody got it? We good? No, we're not good, but we're okay. All right, you know where we're going tomorrow and what I'm going to do, and let's see where we take it. We'll work from that number. We'll have another budget workshop as soon as we can get it on everybody's schedule after they've thought about this some more, and we'll get there. Anything else? We're adjourned.